Have you ever experienced a situation in your life that seemed insurmountable? There seemed to be no way through. Just raise your hand. I just want to see if anybody has experienced that. Yeah. Because we all have experienced these moments where you come against a wall, or your whole world is shaken, you feel overwhelmed, lost, terrified, and you have no idea how to get through. And today we come together to make sure that we brave a way, not just for ourselves, but for those we lead, whether it's our children, whether it's the clients, whether it's groups, whether it's, a whole nation. And I wish that we had more women who would step up to take leadership in our world. When we stand in these situations, what often happens is the familiar thing that the freezing up, the tightening and all that. But there's right now, I find, and that's why I'm so passionate to teach this training, but also to teach the Spiritual Women Leader training, because I feel like at this moment in time, it's the most crucial that we can brave her way, that we can lead a way and lead from a way that guides us to be more connected, that guides us to a new dawning in our world. It's like when we look around in our world, you see what's happening, yeah? Most of you are aware enough to have noticed how many traumas are emerging for people, maybe in you too. How the political upheaval, the climate change. I mean, I could list the hugeness of the problems we're facing, and it all points to one thing: we're on the edge. And and these moments when we're on the edge, when you have no way, it seems there is no way. What we often do, that's the familiar road, is to, some people tend to put their heads in the sand. And if it's the spiritual people, then you put some nice affirmations on top. But it doesn't make the situation better, or it doesn't go away. Or you hide, maybe you have already also done that. You hide in the closet. But when a tidal wave comes, like what is now unleashing in our world, it's going to break the door of your closet too. And some go out and fight. But if you ever try to fight with a big wave, you get turned upside down over and over again, and it just gets worse. And my question often was, how in the world is it possible to guide ourselves, to guide others, to make a difference in the world, especially her way, and to guide from turbulent waters to the shores of peace, to experience being enfolded and held by love, come what may, to take a stand in truth amidst the massive lies, to root in our nature so deeply, no matter what we feel, no matter what comes our way. And you know this because you probably have experienced it in one way or another. There's a far greater life power at work, a power which, as women in particular, we can tap into and connect with and act from. It's that power that has far greater intelligence, that shows us a way when there is no way. It's like that power, that way we need in these unprecedented times. Because in my view, it's nothing short than extraordinary. And so we have the opportunity to keep connecting to it. And yet we tap into it, we feel it for a moment, and then we're off again and feel more disconnected from it. And I have learned through intense experiences in my life, and there were life and death experiences, a pattern, steps, a clear way that actually works. And I've been tested left and right until finally it's so embodied in my way of living and guiding others that it comes quite naturally, because it feels natural. And I want to tell you a story, because I feel often with stories, it's easier to connect to something that feels sometimes a little bit far away, or, you know, can become just another concept we walk around with. And some of you may have heard the story, but if you hear it this time, really lean in and sense and listen to what are the steps that you can notice when I tell you this story. What are the steps that got me through the fire? And so this story is, well, it actually started from a story with an anaconda snake in the Amazon. But that story I won't tell this time. It's where I feel I gained, she showed me the way. And I either would get the way or I would die. Simple as that. So another time when I had to call on it was when I was riding my horse, and it was at that time in California, where you remember just recently was another huge fires that burned everything down. And these fires, for any European, you probably cannot even imagine how huge they are and how threatening, life-threatening, really. So I was riding on one day, it was in summer, up a mountain, and suddenly I smelled smoke. And my mind was like, well, that's probably just campfires. But then I noticed how my horse started speeding up. And I turned around, and behind me was a huge fire. And the fire, being driven by the winds, was blowing our direction. So my horse and I, Magic was his name, and he still lives, but in California. A white Arabian horse, they're really fast. And that comes in handy, especially in that moment. He raced up at lightning speed, up the mountain, because horses are terrified of fire, and like most beings are. And I figured Well, nothing to worry. He's faster than the fire, and we're going to just ride down the other side of the mountain. On top, we arrived on top of the mountain. He was sweating. And I looked, and that's when I got the shock of my life. Because the moment I looked, I saw the nightmare. We were surrounded by a ring of fire, to the right, to the left, to my back, to the front. And maybe we had a few more minutes before the fire would reach the top and devour us. So that was the moment of, I clenched up in fear. And in that moment, my horse reared up because he was terrified out of its wits. Luckily, I didn't slide down. But I knew in this moment that if I didn't do these steps, we would for sure burn up alive. And it's hard when you have to do something under pressure. You probably know that too. How do you connect really fast when you're terrified out of your wits? It's not easy. And so what I did, I was so grateful for my years of training, of practicing this way, because it came within seconds. It was there to ground down, but not with some visualizing a red thread down the earth. As I really ground down, and I'll show you later the steps, and we practiced them together. But for now, I grounded down really fast, took my seat, took a breath, even whilst the fear was surging through my body. I mean, survival brain was at high alert. And I practiced really becoming present, taking room, noticing the space around me. But that isn't enough to just become aware and to get grounded. What I also had to do is to connect to my heart, to that infinite well of love inside. But how do you do that when the system is like on such alert and when the fire is rearing near? And the only thing that I remember it was like doing is just feel my feelings, give a breath, acknowledge, and then tap deeper into my heart where I could feel there is that flicker of love. There it is. Sensing it, feeling it, letting it fill my body. And from that space, I was able to connect to the fire. With the fire, I became the fire. I became the earth. There was no more separation. And in that moment, I experienced an embodied oneness with the whole creation, including my horse. And from that space, my horse when I was connected like that, my horse totally eased up, settled down, looked at me like, okay, let's go. I had no idea where to go because we were surrounded by a ring of fire. But something in me knew. From that connection, something in me knew exactly where to turn, to go step by step down the hill towards the fire, which seemed completely mad. But my mind was still in this moment because my mind had no idea what to do anymore. And I saw suddenly there was an opening. So we went through two walls of fire. or we went through a bush and turned a left corner. I felt not just guided, it was like that intelligence, what I call her, that life power, that pulse, was just knowing the way and leading us. And I just followed, the horse followed. And I never forget that moment where there was so much fire that I barely could breathe. No horse in his right mind would ever walk through that. But he trusted me because I trusted. And I was solid, even if I didn't know the next corner and where we would get through. And it was this incredible dance with the fire, with the earth, with the horse, with my own being. And it was like, and it wasn't scary anymore. It was a divine dance. And what happened is, of course, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here with you. Of course, we got down the mountain and then we jumped into the river. My horse we dunked right into it. And I knew in that moment we were saved. And I felt in my bones, I knew in my bones, this is her way. And this is an extraordinary way. And at the same time, it's the most natural way because it's in sync with our nature. It's in sync with what is just buried inside that we know. And for that, I'm eternally grateful because I learned it with an anaconda snake in the Amazon. I applied it with my horse, and then I started applying it daily in my life, but also that's how I lead groups. That's how I lead my clients. That's how things emerge that are not visible to the eye, that seem impossible, and yet through that, a turning happens that's always, always beneficial for everyone involved. And yeah, it's just, before we go more into it, I just want to ask you, what did you hear that you felt was one of the steps or two of the steps that you find you can resonate with? Just unmute yourself and just even bring one sentence in or one word.
Well, I think the first step was probably that you just became connected to your inner self, to God, to this divine feeling with all your trust, with all your might that you just had in you. And this led you into this stage where you could connect with the fire and with everything. So you were in complete trust of your own bravery, of your ability to survive this somehow.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. Thank you. Yeah, good noticing there. Really good. Anyone else?
I had written down this awareness of the external world, and then it went in like this internal awareness, like what was my mind, my feeling, like my body. And then just returning to center, breathing, feeling.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Awareness. Yeah. Trust, faith, awareness. Anyone else notice something? Yeah.
Yes, to me, what came through was surrender
Yeah.
to love. that you went into your heart
Yeah.
and just surrendered, and your mind, even if your mind was there,
Yeah.
it wasn't leading anymore. It was
That's-
your heart leading, and that's beautiful.
That touches you, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
totally. Like you can feel it right now.
Oh God, yes.
Something is really touched.
Yes.
It's beautiful to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you. What touched you in the story? You know, if you just imagine we could apply that in, you can apply that in your own life, but also in the way you guide and lead others. What might be possible then? Isabella.
Yeah, for me, it was this feeling of my mind is my mind wants to save my life and telling me stories now. And I feel it like every day, because every day something happened here with my children or with my group, with a group I lead. And I learned from you, Nicola, and also, I mean, your story now is one piece of the whole training. I made it last year, the spiritual leadership training, and I learned to realize, okay, this is my mind, and this is my intuition, this is my inner voice, and I think it's very helpful. The mind is very helpful. I learned that from you, but to trust the inner voice, to say, okay, I go through it. I go through the fire with my horse. It's ownership. It's yeah, it's for me personally, it was the biggest shift in my life, because I can take responsibility and guide my family, myself, my husband, everyone with me through situations. And it's very, very helpful. So the fire is always there for me also. In my life, I can't make a course or read a book and can pray that maybe no fire in my life, but that won't be. I have to learn to go through the fire, and I learned it with you, and this story showed me how huge it is, because sometimes I forget it in small things every day.
Thank you for sharing that, Isabella. And I can see, I know stories, how you're applying it, you know, also in your work. It's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, there is, of course, in that story, there's many elements, and we can't go through each. But one of the things I want to just give you the main 3 steps, you know, so really practical. And some of you might know already most of it, but when you combine them, that's what creates the magic. Yeah, so one step without the other ain't working so well. It's kind of like we walking lopsided. And you have fires in your life. We have fires, we have tidal waves in our world. So I feel like I want to really pass this on to as many women as possible, because I know in my bones, in my heart, that we have a power inside that's beyond just the personal self-empowerment, a power that once we have, like, we open the gates, it's unprecedented. It's so powerful that it can turn the worst shit into gold. And it can show us a way. It shows us a way. And one of the things, there are literally, sometimes it seems like so you can't quite touch it. How can you get in touch with it? But the thing is this, there are clear steps. That's the good news. And you can practice them. And one of the things that's the most, and I like simplicity. I like it that it goes simple, not very complicated, not complicated, because complicated is useless when the fire is on, right? It doesn't work. And whenever our mind is in charge, it gets very complicated. Yes, the mind is a useful tool if it's in service, but not when it runs the show. So how do we do it? Well, the first thing, of course, I mean, this is just a small thing here I'm saying. It's like, okay, when shit hits the fan, just call for help to her. Help, show me the way. Because the help is already there. And I did that on my horse too. But with the call for help, you open the gate, so you're open to it. And the step that's really crucial, especially among the spiritual oriented women, we talk a lot about the grounding and the embodiment, but I see when I work, and I've worked with thousands of women around the world, I see a lot of the grounding practice goes usually like this. Imagine a red thread going, or, you know, a rope going down from your sacrum to the earth. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, it ain't working in situations where you're under pressure. You need to feel that. But how do you feel? You have to sense it. So we're not doing visualization, because visualization is still the mind. We have to drop deeper in the simplest way. And you can do this right now, because I promised that we also practice this. The simplest way is just drop your weight. Give her, the earth, your weight. Do it very practical. Just drop your shoulders down. Let the sacrum drop into the chair you're sitting in, or in the couch, until you really can feel the gravity is your best friend. It pulls you. And why is gravity so important? Because when we're not connected to gravity, our nervous system goes haywire. Our bodies know when you're not connected to the ground of being. And that makes things far, far more dangerous and tricky. So just drop your weight down. Give a little bit more. I often say, you know, there's nobody who has ever fallen off the earth. So you can give the weight. And that means also to give the weight of your burdens. Give it physically, give it down to gravity. So the grounding is a major step. And that doesn't mean that you make your feelings go away or change them. It just means like you find holding ground, something that you can settle into. No matter how much the winds are blowing and how shaken you might feel. So can you feel the holding from below? Just raise your hand. Can you feel it? Yeah, some of you, yes. So the next step is the presencing, and there's many ways how to become more present. The easiest way for women is through the senses. So our senses on the spiritual path, the feminine spiritual path, are actually our best allies and friends. And the sense, this fastest and simplest way, and just do it with me right now, is just look around in your room and notice 3 colors. Just see 3 colors. And then turn to your hearing. What are 2 sounds you can hear? And then turn to your taste or smell. Some people can't smell very well. So if you can't smell, 1 taste or in your mouth or 1 smell. Okay. Then let your awareness expand out. Just notice the space around you. Like really notice there's air around you, there's space around you. Because when things happen, we often get not just contracted, we get ourselves in a muddle and we feel like we're so separate selves. But let yourself just notice there's space. And breathe into that space. Let your body just take up a little bit more room than it's taking up right now. Just widen the body, give it room. Notice there's some movement there. Just let your body move a little bit with the space. And we go, and yes, you can practice way more ways of presencing, but these are shortcuts I'm showing you right now, the essential pieces. And what I learned is that all that isn't enough. You need the heart. So how do we bring our heart online? Because the heart has the greatest wisdom of all. And as women, we actually have an easier access to our hearts than we think. Now, the first step is, of course, through our feeling. And I invite you just to notice, what are you feeling in this moment? Any emotion, no judgment. It can be numb, it can be sad, joy, a mix. And notice, where's that in your body, that feeling? Because when we get overwhelmed, it usually has to do with like we can't be with our feeling. So just notice that. And then what you do is you bring a caressing, a touching breath to it. And a yes to whatever feeling or emotion that's just present right now. You're not just noticing it like an observer. You're actually loving it through your breath. You're touching it. And the breath towards a feeling, you let yourself breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the mouth. So you're breathing in and touching. Even the tension inside that you might feel, without trying to change it, just touch it with a caress, with a touching breath, a loving breath. Yes, yes, that's what's here. And I am here. And sense what happens for you when you do that a couple of times. And you go into just, you can even put your hand on your heart if you can't quite feel it. It's often good to have touch with it. It's just, okay, so what is it that I love? Whom do I love? You take a very simple question like, I love flowers. It doesn't matter right now. It doesn't need to be anything earth-shaking. But it helps you to get in touch with your heart. I just, when you remember what is it that you love, whom do you love, you let yourself feel it. And you notice that warmth in the heart. Maybe you can feel that flame inside. That flame that can never be drowned. We can bury it for sure. And we bury it by blocking our feelings. But right now, just sense into that glimmer, that maybe an illumination you can feel. Just let it expand out through your body, that warm glow. From that love inside, I can never, ever be taken away or broken. And as you let that warmth, allow it to expand all the way to your feet, all the way into your hands. You might sense there's a pulse, very alive pulse inside. It's like that aliveness. That sense, that bigger, that greater power. Allow yourself to just lean into it, to take a sip, to taste it. By giving it your devotion, your attentiveness. It might be pulsing in your belly or in your yoni or in your chest. And I invite you to lean right into that. It's something you might be aware of for what's new to you, but there's something that you always have inside you. And then let that move you. Just for a moment, let that move you. Even if it's just a tickle in your hands and you let it expand, you let it move your hand. If it's something that just emerges there, suddenly you get an answer. You follow that, because in braving her way, we actually have to learn to not just be connected and aligned, but to feel at the same time, act wisely. So that we don't squash our feelings because they're crucial. We don't squash our body. But we're also not, when the fire is on, you can't process your feelings until you take action. But if you take action from this connection, you probably, the fire is going to burn you up. Yeah. And spiritually, okay, yes, but on a physical level on the planet, when you have to engage with situations or with people that are challenging, or not just that are challenging, when you can feel moved and inspired out of great love for humanity or for, animals or the planet, that you want to make a difference. And you connect, that's why you keep connecting to the way. And you become braver through that. Because as you said before already, I can't remember who said it, like it's the way to walk through the fire. Not around it, not above it, not trying to drown the fire. It's all useless. I'm sure you know that. But to walk right through and let the way emerge step by step. Every step you take, being grounded, present, and in love, there, that's the next step. And then you, like I said, you know how I had it in the story, then you begin to dance in unison, but you also can lead others safely across the shores to peace, to become a refuge in this nutty world. And lead in a way that only woman can. Like I feel passionate about, you know, like helping to grow a new generation of spiritual women leaders who are not into spiritual bypassing and are not just into processing endlessly, but also who process and they raise their torches. They're devoted to be in touch with a way as ancient as the sea. They're women like you who are devoted to walk not your calling and your soul in a world that's, God, it's a world that's really calling out for you. So yeah, and that's why I also created the spiritual women leader training that Isabella was part of, to provide you know, the soul growth so we can embody what we talk, you know, and also to learn really essential professional skills and capacities. They are different because this time is different. I imagine that some of you have already encountered what's going on for people in the world, and you're wondering maybe, you know, how am I going to guide my clients through this when you get a phone call like, I had a phone call like, my house is burning down and my family is running for their lives. What shall I do? And I had to guide the woman right in the midst of it. And I think many of us who are in any capacity of leadership or called to do that, you will encounter way more extreme situations. And for that, I think it's not just about our survival anymore, but it's about being able to braving the way through and bringing forth a new dawning that we really deeply, urgently need. And so I'm really glad you're here. Well, I'm going to close in a moment, but what I want to give you right now is just, if you want to close your eyes and just sense into what might be possible if you and all of you who are in this circle right now we braved a way through the fires in the world, and we do it together. What's the picture that emerges for you? Like, you're not doing this alone. what effect does it have on the world if we raise our torches together and brave the way through for a new dawning in this world? So I just want to thank you for showing up tonight. I hope you're taking something that's precious for you with you. And yeah, I just want to bow to all of you great women who turn from mice into lionesses to show up in the world and in your life. Thank you so much for what you're bringing. So with that, I want to just give you a blessing on your path. And thank you again. For many years, I carried a vision that's coming true, that women who dare and care get on horses. I do love horses. And raise their torches high to ride together through all the darkness, through the confusion, the chaos, the turmoil, the shaking in the world, and the own fears and doubts for a new dawning in our world. To lead others from the deep, connected, feminine way. And to shine forth that gift that you're meant to live, for which you're born for, at this time in our world. And for that, check out the Women's Spiritual Leader Training, which is so unique and profound, but it does unite both the unfoldment of your own soul calling and embodiment, and the skills and capacities to grow for leading from the feminine way. So together, we rise in a world that needs us now.